One of the questions we get asked repeatedly when we're talking about logic apps and Azure functions is when should I put them in an API layer and when should they just form part of a service layer? So there's a couple of considerations here that we'll go through. So logic apps that have an HTTP trigger, in other words, they're exposed as an HTTP REST API, those can be surfaced as an API and API management. And logic apps can call other logic apps via HTTP. So when might you have them in API management and when wouldn't you? Similarly, Azure functions also appear as an API, as a REST API, and they could be an API management. When would you do that? And when would you have them just calling each other internally? So a few considerations here, because there is no right and no wrong answer for everything. But generally speaking, if you want things to be secured in one place, particularly if you've got public or external consumers of that service, then API management would be a good way to go. If you want them to be discoverable, so in other words, you're using API management as a way of cataloguing your APIs and making them available elsewhere, then that also lends itself to this. And similarly, reuse, but particularly wider reuse across your organisation. API management is definitely the way to go. If, however, you've just decided that you're building up a solution and you've just broken it down into manageable chunks, some of which might be other logic apps and some of it might be functions, but effectively they're private, there may be reuse of them, but that's inside the solution as a whole. So one function could be called by many logic apps, but within the same solution. And effectively it's just internal to your organisation or internal to your department. Then by all means just treat those as private APIs and there's no need to put them in API management. You still need to solve the problem of how you're going to secure them, and you still need to make sure you've got the right network access to them and all those sort of things. And you might still want to think about how you're going to do metering and diagnostics and all that kind of thing, the stuff that API management gives you for free. But just as a rule of thumb, there's some thoughts about when you might choose API management and when you might not.